Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Just gonna wait for you guys to tune in. While you are doing that, let me put my telephone number. Come on in. Welcome. Welcome. I'm just putting in my phone number. Good morning. If this is your first time, welcome. Okay, there we go. I hope I put the right numbers in there. Let me pin that. Okay, so my number is pinned. Good morning, Instagram. Good morning, Facebook, and good morning, YouTube. Franca Otto from Maryland. Good morning from YouTube. Eva, Mary Choma. Good morning. I was really hoping to see you live today. Daniel, hi. Good morning. How are you? Jem Inrisa, good morning. Unstoppable Target, good morning. How's everyone doing today? Nadia, Aisha, good morning, Aisha. Oh, let's see. Looking glowy and stunning per usual. As always, I tune into all your lives and I'm working from. Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Drop Elf Organics, good morning. Do you sell like skincare products? Is that why it says Japal Organics? Fabi says, how much for a consultation? It's $150 for a consultation. Fave Official, good morning. Good morning, Katie Ann from Facebook. If this is your first time tuning in, definitely comment and let me know that and let me know where you are tuning in from. Today I'll just be answering questions. It's kind of been quiet on the immigration front in as far as like news or anything else. So I don't have any breaking news today or anything of that nature. Just to talk about some of the questions you guys might have. If this is your first time, my name is Aisha Chidoe, and I'm an immigration lawyer. I'm here in Atlanta, Georgia, but I represent clients all over the United States with their family immigration matter. So we cover all family immigration cases, whether that's marriage, parent, child, consular processing, fiancé visas, also humanitarian-based cases like VAWA applications, trafficking, labor, or sex trafficking cases, U visas, which are for victims of a serious crime, SIJS, which is for special juveniles, like if your parent abandoned you or and you're on your minor essentially, and then also we cover removals and some detention cases. So if you fall under any of those categories or you have a family member who's in any of those categories, we're happy to speak with you or them in a consultation. I've posted my numbers on here. Our phone number is 407-995-6567. Or you can also call our other number, which is 678-325-1037, or you can send a WhatsApp to 404-333-8751. I've pinned the number on Instagram. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, you should be able to see it scrolling through the ticker on the bottom. If you are joining this live after it's no longer live, you can find the information on Instagram in my profile on there. I saw someone say they were a first timer. Let me just shout them out. Fave Official from Katy, Texas. Hey, welcome. Welcome to the side of town. C Jazzy says, I've been married for 2 years and I filed for my husband and never got a response yet. Well, see, Jazzy, I would need a little bit more. Like, when did you file for your husband? No, when. What did you file? So, did you do an adjustment of status? Did you do consular processing? Which one did you do? And where is your so where's your husband? When you say you've not gotten a response yet, so I'm assuming you probably got like your receipts. and what is your own status? Are you a green card holder or are you a U.S. citizen? So if you can just give me a little bit more details, I'll be better able to answer you. Javante says, any updates as it relates to the pause? No updates yet for which pause? The one outside the US or the one inside the US? Because those are two different. The one in the US I already talked about. Like some of them, they are interviewing. They're back to interviewing, but doing it as on one-on-one, case by case, until we start to see some affirmative decisions. I don't want to say that, okay, looks like they've lifted the pause and they're just going, individual case by case. If you are in the US and you're from one of those 39 countries, just expect a delay in your case because of the heightened scrutiny in your application process. And that's why you need to make sure that you are submitting a really solid application, especially those of you who are doing applications based on good faith marriage. If you're doing applications based on good faith marriage, guys, it's really important to have evidence of your good faith marriage. If you're saying, you guys are happily married, this marriage is genuine, you guys need to have proof. You need to have proof of, cohabitation. And if you don't cohabitate, you need to have proof that, why you're not cohabitating makes sense, but that there are other things that you have that can genuinely show that you have a real, or a good marriage. You need to show proof of financial entanglement in some capacity. It's not a one buy one get all or whatever it is. It's not a one size fit all. So you might not have a bank account, but what are some other things that you have? With cohabitation, like when people come into a consult and they've been married 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and I say, okay, well, what evidence do you have? They have the same address, and they say they don't have anything. It's a hard sell. It's a hard sell to USCIS after that length of time. It's easier if you're newlywed because, if you're newlywed, obviously, you're not going to have as much things as someone who's been married for a longer time because you're building. But if you've been married 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, the expectation is much higher that you should have some things. So, again, these interviews are being extremely, extremely detailed. So when they're looking at your file and when they're asking you questions for your testimony, if you are someone who filed an I-751, which is for people who are trying to remove the conditions on their 2-year green card so they can get a 10-year green card, especially if you're from a country where, not a country, especially if you're one of the applicants who never had a marriage-based interview to get your 2-year green card. They're being really, really tough in their interview on that because, I've heard officers say that, well, we're going to even be seeing if they should have approved you in the first place and if that was an error, So, yeah. Williams, Karina, good morning, Wagwan. Blessings from Jamaica. Hi, how are you? Okay. If adjustment of status inside the US and you did not do louder, I don't know if you're speaking, is this English? I don't understand. Fabi Vieira, I don't understand your question. Are you saying if adjustment of status inside the US and you did not, are you trying to say disclose? Maybe you're trying to say, you did not disclose a job on your petition. Can this be updated from unemployed to the correct at the interview? Is that what you're asking me? Yes. If you, let's say in an application, you know that you worked under the table, for instance, and you're filing a marriage-based case because you're married to a U.S. citizen, you should be selecting yes. If, let's say, for whatever reason, by error, you selected no, you will have the opportunity to update that at your interview, where you let the officer know, because they will run through that list of questions. And if they skip that question, you make sure you tell them to amend it for that to say yes instead of no, if that's the question you're asking. Shaquille Shazer says, I recently gave biometrics for a U visa. When can I expect a BFD? Honestly, U visas right now. And in fact, a few of my colleagues, I'm in a few attorney forums, we're just discussing this. The U visas, the bona fides are taking a really, really long time. So I can't really give you a timeline when to expect that. What evidence do I need for an I-751 renewal based on marriage? Basically, the same exact evidence that you submit for your marriage-based case, which is proof of good faith marriage, proof of bona fides. A lot of the evidence you're going to want to see are going to be things after you got your green card, or things that you didn't submit when you applied for your original green card. So if you got your green card, and so we're in 2026, so the people coming up right now will be people who got their green card in 2024. So they're going to want to see evidence from 2024 to 2026 in terms of proof of good faith marriage. Remember, the standards are going to be higher in this case because, one, now you have your social security number. Two, you have a green card. So they're going to have a hard time accepting it. Unless you're doing a waiver, they're going to have a hard time accepting excuses of why you and your spouse don't have certain things together, because they're like, okay, you can travel, you can, you can get accounts together, you can commingle funds of some sort, have some certain joint bills, or one person's name can be on this bill, the other person's name can be on that bill, So they're gonna have a hard time if you don't have anything. Again, with every immigration type, there are, of course, a checklist of different things you can have. It's not saying you have to have every exact thing on the checklist, but what it is that when we do submit evidence, they're looking at the totality of everything that is submitted to say, okay, it is likely true that these two people have a good faith marriage and have continued a good faith marriage. Okay. I filed VAWA 2.9 years ago. Is it normal not to receive biometrics appointment? That's not normal. That's 3 years ago. If you've never gotten a biometrics appointment, that's definitely not normal. I would reach out to the VAWA unit. If you did it 2.9 years ago, your case is probably with Vermont. So you either send a snail mail to Vermont to try and it's very hard sometimes to do a phone call and get authenticated, or have your attorney use the attorney hotline email to reach out to find out, because sometimes maybe the mail was missing, or like they sent you the mail. So it's possible that they send biometrics, but you just never got it. But 3 years is a long time after you file something not to get biometrics. Okay, Vina on YouTube says, good morning. My husband of 3 years has decided to file my papers. I have a VAWA for 2 years now. Should I cancel my VAWA and let him file for me? Can I have 2 cases pending? I think I respond to this almost every live. This is really a personal decision, a personal choice. Personally, I would not, and because I just would say, obviously, if your spouse was abusive enough for you to file a VAWA application, it means that, and you've been married for 3 years, it means that your spouse has used this immigration application as a form of power and control over you. Because in what world would a loving spouse who's a US citizen, knowing that their spouse does not have any status or ability to remain here permanently and could be potentially separated for them, waits 3 years to legalize them? In what world? So if you now have the ability to self-petition yourself, why would you remove that power and give it back to him to be in his control of how you get legal or not? Because what ends up happening is, let's say the person files for you and, you guys get into a fight and he decides he wants to withdraw it. Or he goes to the interview and decides, you're scheduled for an interview, and he decides, you know what? I'm not going to the interview. You're pissing me off today. What happens then? So that's why I say it's a deeply personal choice. I have not 10 out of 10, not 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. Most people in our firm, not most, all people in our firm who have done this have ended up being screwed and reverting back. And sometimes it's been too late. So take with that whatever you will, okay? A niece of 30 years, single, daughter of my blood brother, bearing same surname. Can she file for her uncle? I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. But, nieces can file for their uncles, whether they have the same last name or not. Like, she can file for her father, but not her uncle. Good morning. My I-130 and 485 got denied due to not having enough evidence of a bona fide marriage. What's my best option? It depends on when it got denied. If you're still under 33 days, you can file an appeal ASAP, depending on when it is. And then we got to sit down and see what evidence you submitted, and why USCIS didn't think that was enough, and what evidence can we pull forth to do it. Of course, if appeal fails, there is a chance, a very, very strong chance, about 90%, that you will receive an NTA, which is a notice to appear in front of an immigration judge for deportation proceedings. So in that case, you're going to need to refile. But let's first see if you have an appeal window. So if you have an appeal window, that would be the first thing I would suggest, to try to appeal it and just gather more evidence. Because if it got denied for not having enough bona fide, it would mean that you were giving like a request for additional evidence at some point, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. And if you were given a request for evidence, it would depend on what you submitted. A lot of times people get RFEs and they submit this RFE responses and get denied. And when I look at the RFE responses, I realize that for a lot of them, they didn't answer all the questions or all the things that they're requesting. And that's what ends up getting them denied. So, yeah. Adjustment of status. He lives with me. I'm a U.S. citizen. He has TPS right now. They fingerprinted me, not him. We never heard anything after that. I'm sorry, I don't even remember what your first question was. I would have to scroll up. Let me just scroll up to see what this question was about. Okay, I've been married for 2 years, and I filed for my husband and never got a response. Okay, and you said he has TPS, so I'm going to just make a guess that he's either from Haiti. Is he from Haiti? If he is from Haiti, he's subject to the adjudicative pause, if that is where he's from. I'm married to a U.S. citizen for 5 years. I filed the I-751 last year. I'm scared to file the N-400 with everything going on. I have all the documents, though. Is it safe to apply, or should I wait? What exactly, you said you filed the I-751 last year, meaning 2025. What exactly are you scared of? If you have a genuine marriage, you're with your husband, what exactly are you scared of? So that's the question. The only way to remove fear is to legalize yourself, right? So if you are eligible for something, you should be filing for it. They say, what is it? There's a phrase I'm looking for, which I can't really remember right now. You miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, right? That's the phrase. So you're eligible for something and you're just not going to file. Why? Like, why wouldn't you file if you're eligible for something? If you're eligible for something and you file, that protects you from deportation, right? So even if you're detained for whatever reason, let's say, like you're driving and you're driving over the speed limits to the point where it's arrestable. Like I think 30 miles per hour over the speed limit will make you arrested. For instance, I'm using that as an example. And you're arrested or whatever it is, like, okay, you don't have, you don't have legal status. In your case, you actually have legal status because you're actually a green card holder. So I'm not really sure what you're scared of, Kamisha. But let's just say someone doesn't have legal status, but you're married to a U.S. citizen. Okay, they detain you, and then you do your good faith marriage in court, and then get your green card. So you still will get your green card if you have a genuine marriage. So same thing applies to the N-400. The only thing that should frighten you is if you and your spouse are not good. And let's say, because you said you've been married for 5 years. So unless you and your spouse are separating and you're considering doing a waiver, and then wanting to make sure you have the evidence. So the first thing is the question of should I apply, should I not apply, would be you scheduling a consultation with an attorney, first going over the evidence that you submitted for your 751 to make sure that you have a solid 751 application. And if you don't, what more do you have that you can bring with you to an N400 interview? And then, get you qualified for the N400 interview. And at the time of the interview, then you can have all those things and then be done, become a US citizen, and be done. Guys, immigration cases are still happening every day, and that's why, I will say that the decisions are slower. Decisions are slower in certain cases. I mean, in marriage-based cases, we're seeing interviews happen quicker. Not necessarily even decisions. Sometimes the decisions are quick, sometimes they're slower. Like I had posted somebody yesterday from like St. Vincent or something like that. I don't remember what country, who we got the green card, but that client's interview was 6 months ago. Okay. And that client had a Stokes interview. So Stokes interview means where they separate them. So it was a tough interview, right? But they got their green card. So the point of what I'm saying is that, even if it's tough, so what? If you have a good faith marriage, you're going with all gusto, and prove your case. It's like when people come to me and say, oh, they separated us and my spouse was pressured into withdrawing the case. That's BS to me. There is no way on this green earth, if I have a genuine marriage, I don't care what, a USCIS officer tells me or whatever it is. I will never withdraw the case because I know I have a genuine marriage and I will fight it to the very end. Maybe that's just my personality. I don't know. Or maybe because it's easier for me to say because I'm an immigration lawyer. But no, if you have a genuine marriage, nobody should pressure you into withdrawing. And if you know that you're someone who's susceptible to that kind of panic and fear, you should be going with an advocate, which is an attorney who can say, no, don't sign that, because sometimes my clients will look behind, to me and ask me, if they want to sign, if they say, oh, do you want to read your statement and should you sign it? I said, give me the copy of the statement. Let me read it, and I can say to my client, okay, you can sign your statement, or no, you have a good faith marriage. Why would you sign that? So please don't be scared, just file if you're eligible for something, stop, tune out of all, the thing is that there's so much misinformation online. It's actually scary, and not just misinformation, even from attorneys. I truly, truly hate to say anything negative about certain people in my profession. But there's just so much that I hear that I say to myself, like, if I wasn't an attorney, I can see how this would be way over my head because this person is telling you this person is telling you this person is telling you this, like you literally don't even know who or where to look at, but the proof is always in the pudding, and a lot of information, you can read it yourself, so yeah. Can I be approved for residence if my U.S. citizen daughter petitioned for me? I came with a visa but overstayed 20 years and I have a final order of removal. I've been arrested, but it was dismissed. The final order of removal will need to be terminated. Because you have a final order of removal, if they do schedule you for an interview, you have a very high chance of detention. So in order for her to do that, because I don't know when you got your final order of removal, like how many years ago, but the only way is that case would have to be reopened and terminated. But there's a great, 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 great risk of detention for you. Okay. E. Daniel said, I received a notice of intent to deny because of my birth certificate, so I had to get another form. Okay, that's fine. You can definitely get it. You have 33 days. So I don't know when you received it. I don't know what country you're from as well. So make sure that you follow the reciprocity table of the correct birth certificate. So like whatever country you're from, what you want to do is you want to go on, I had the site open this morning. Let me just tell you what it is. I wish I could paste here, but basically it's travel.state.gov. And what you want to type in is visa reciprocity. You go to US visas and you go to visa reciprocity. And when you go to visa reciprocity, you want to click on your country. And then when you click on your country, it will tell you what the exact document is for, i.e., birth certificate, marriage certificate, divorce certificate, because divorce certificate is one of a high is a very, very high disapproval rate. Like that's one of the ways people get denied a lot. So you want to check on there, like if you have a divorce certificate or divorce decree, you want to check on there like side by side to make sure that it is the accurate one. Same thing with birth certificate, especially from a country where the rules of birth certificates changed over time. You know, for instance, in like using Nigeria, for example, like certain NPC birth certificates didn't exist, you know, before 1975. And even then it was a pilot program with just a few countries. So, you know, for a lot of them, they're going to have to get updated one. Another example, which was what I was on the visa reciprocity, was for a client from India who had a common law marriage. But, you know, the thing is that in India, you know, after 2006, you have to register your marriage. And, you know, there are only certain kinds of marriages that can be registered. So like, for instance, let me see if I have it up. So like they're like, you know, in India, for example, let's see what it is. So like, you know, you can only have like, you know, you can only either have the Hindu Marriage Act, like you can only register that. And then they have something called the Special Marriage Act. So whether you're having a nikah, like for a Muslim wedding or a Christian wedding, you know, there's a process in which you get a marriage certificate. That's the only way. Before 2006, you know, it wasn't common, you know, to have certain registrations, but now it is. So you just want to do that to make, you know, your life easy. Okay, guys, I have to jump off. If you want to schedule a consultation for your own personal case, call us back. You know, the phone number is 407-995-6567. If you're my client and you have a question, I see some of my clients, definitely, as you know, I definitely do not talk about any confidential client case on live, no matter how much you ask about it. Send an email to me or on your client portal to get that answered. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your week. And I will be back on live on next week. I have a slew of interviews, actually. So let me confirm. But I think Monday is good. But I'll be on live next week, Monday at 10 o'clock Eastern. Otherwise, schedule a consultation, and I will chat with y'all later. Bye.